And so, yeah, I'm going to introduce you. So Mike's a good friend. He was a student. Yeah, and I am this old. A student and then a colleague, and now a friend, a good friend. So Mike currently lives in Vietnam, which is why we've got this a little bit earlier than we normally do. He works online and offline as a teacher, trainer, and consultant. He took an MA TESOL at the New School and did so well. He then became faculty. And as a faculty member, he taught the curriculum development course. He taught ESOL materials, and then eventually ran the portfolio program that we had. So without further ado, I'm really happy to introduce him and to say that this webinar is entitled Developing Receptive Skills, Lessons Using a Pre, During, Post Model. So Mike, please take over and everybody enjoy.
Okay, well, thank you for the kind introduction, my friend. Uh, um, and as Leslie said, thank you everybody for coming on presumably a Saturday morning. This is not just small talk, but I need to know what's the weather like where you are. If you can type into the chat how the weather is where you are and where you are, I would appreciate it. So where are you and what's the weather? I guess most people are in the New York area. Rainy. Okay. Abu Dhabi, Turkey. Okay. Great. 52 degrees Celsius. Gosh, Robert, that is something. Okay. Thank you for the weather reports from all around. As Leslie said, I'm in Vietnam. I won't talk about the weather in Vietnam just yet. Maybe later. But for now, I'll share my screen. And here's some questions for you to consider. This was actually in the write-up. Just a question to think about. Nothing to do. You don't have to type. So you find this text, reading or listening text that you want to use in your next class, and how do you start planning a lesson for a reading or listening text for a receptive skills lesson? Um, Hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a great answer for this, and maybe you already do. I'm sure many of you already do have a great answer for this, but this is I hope, a decent starting point for a question. So we move on. Here we are. Here's the topic title for today. Paula gave a great answer. Okay, looking for a lead-in activity around the context. Great answer. So that's me, Michael Griffin. Leslie said what I mostly do, and I also have this sort of boutique business of writing course books and other kind of books at the ELT workshop. I'm the editor there. We don't have a large library as of yet, but that's my official title. And I move on. So we're talking today about pre, during, post PDP lessons. And I suggested that this is for receptive skills lessons. When we talk about receptive skills lessons, I just want to clarify what I mean. Maybe somebody can help me in the chat. What do I mean by receptive? The questions do get harder. Listening or reading, not active. Okay. Could be active. Maybe I disagree a little bit, but I take your point. Listening. So the answer I was looking for was listening and reading. You get what you give. It's often true. That's right. Thank you, Robin. And I want to talk about a particular framework, a particular sort of system, a particular way of organize. Thank you, Rashi says active listening. I think that's an important point. I want to talk about a pre, during, post framework to organize a listening or reading lesson. And the stages, as you can see, pre, during, post. And we'll talk in detail about that shortly. Here's a question. Here's some questions some things we might do in class. And I want you to consider, do the numbers on the right, does that look like a pre-reading or listening activity, or a post-reading or listening activity, or a during, a while, you might have learned a while reading or listening activity. So I give you a couple minutes on your own to think about which of these activities you think is before pre-reading, pre-listening, during reading or listening, or post after reading or listening. And I'll stop talking for a minute while you think about that. You don't have to answer in the chat, just give it a thought. So rather than go one by one right now, we'll just kind of leave this out there as an open question, something to think about. Robert Kim suggests some other activities, great ideas, sure. So I'd like to move along, and shortly I'll give you a demo, and then I'll talk in detail about each of these stages. So if you're feeling lost on these questions and you can't decide if it's pre, during, or post, hopefully by the end of this session you'll be clearer. But if not, you can follow up with me. So if you want to take a screenshot right now, feel free. So next, I will give you some notes, so kind of background on this session, how to taper your expectations or how to match your expectations for what's coming. I think I lied when I said questions and comments are okay at any time. Ideally in the chat. I'll keep my eye on the chat, rather than everybody speaking at once. We expect a lot of people, so I will leave time at the end for questions, ideally 10 minutes. There's exactly one breakout room task planned. Assuming we have time for that, we'll do it. We'll try that. I will keep my eye on the chat the whole time, so feel free to chime in anytime in the chat. If I get a little bit behind, I'll catch up. I'm hoping for an interactive session, which means you guys are doing things. Carol says, will I be sharing slides? Will I be sharing slides via email or a link? I can share the slides even immediately. Well, I can write that down and do it. I'll talk to Leslie about sharing slides, but I'll share the slides right in the middle here, in a bit. You might find that my definition here of PDP or receptive skills is a little bit restrictive. So you might say this is too strict or something. So I say fine. I say yeah. I'm just showing you one way, and I'm just showing you one way. It's up to you how you want to think about implementing the ideas. And my definition of text, oftentimes we think of text as just reading material. Here, text, I also mean listening material, any sort of thing that we might work with. I'm considering a text. Another definition thing to get out of the way here, I call it during PDP, pre-reading, during reading, post-reading, but you might have learned while, pre-while, post, the same idea, just a different word. I think during is a weird word, but it sounds kind of nice with PDP, so maybe people stick to that. But if when I say during, you want to think while, feel free. At the beginning here, I treat reading and listening very in a similar way because they're both receptive skills, right? But they're of course different, and we have different things to worry about and be concerned with as a teacher. So I'll leave that a little bit to you to think about how listening would be different. We're going to start with reading. So that's the sort of preamble, so we're all kind of on the same page. no pun intended. And here we go. This was the best image I could find of a framework. So I wanted to share this. This is actually from Vietnam, where I am. Uh, and so framework we can think of as a way to build our lesson, the way to build our building, our beautiful hotel. Gorgeous, thank you, Renee. I thought so too. So I want to talk about, I want to share with you a little less gorgeous graphic. Next. It's a hotel. It's a hotel in Vietnam. Scaffolding merging with schema. It's a hotel in Phu Quoc, Vietnam. I've never been there. But it's just scaffolding for a new fancy hotel. So keeping that image in mind, here's a less beautiful image of a pre, during, post PDP model of a lesson. So something I love about this is it's so intuitive. Maybe if you've never taught before, you might even think, oh, we should do something before we read. Well, then we should read. Then we can do something after to cap it up. So this PDP model, I find it very intuitive and really useful for teachers. Sometimes, you know, we can forget a step or skip a step or don't think about how to organize it as well as possible. But I like to think of this image here, and I want to suggest that the during is the biggest, widest here because it's the most time that we spend there. So ideally, we don't spend a ton of time on the pre, we don't spend a ton of time in the post, but during is when we focus our energy. And this might bring to mind other ways of planning lessons like a PPP, where the final P is ideally the biggest, the longest, we spend the most time producing. Here, we spend the most time working with the text, that's listening, that's reading in the during stage. So I hope this image is memorable or slightly useful. So we move on. And I suggest, again, PDP is for receptive lessons. Again, reading, listening. You might mix it up. You might try all sorts of different lessons where you have different frameworks. PDP you can incorporate into a larger lesson, but it's a nice, simple way. Hopefully you'll agree with me shortly. It's a nice, simple way to organize a receptive lesson or even a part of a lesson. I'm just wondering as I look at people's faces here, do you use PDP frequently? You can just nod or type. Renee says yes, Gary says yes, Leslie says yes, yes, yes. Okay. So all the time learning, okay. So I'll treat you as experts then. Robert says yes with pre-reading questions, sentence stems. So moving on here, I'd like to begin a very short, ideally very short little demo lesson. And in this demo lesson, I will ask you to pretend that you're students, and we'll work through. Sometimes I'll press some moments here because it's not that exciting for you, maybe. But in a moment, we'll begin a PDP demo reading lesson. Focus on receptive skill of reading. And if you want to see what I'm working from here, I'll share with you. There's a QR code. You can access it on your phone, or here, July 13th, PDP. Here is my sort of page, my very fancy Google page that I made that you can follow along with me. If you can't seem to access it on your phone or on your computer, I'll have it on my screen and you can follow along from my screen. Someone asked about sharing slides. Please remind me after the demo and I'll do that. So for now, we begin our PP sample reading lesson. You guys are advanced students. You don't have to pretend to be anything. You're advanced students who want to learn about the world and English. So, excuse me just a moment. So here's our kind of warm-up questions. I'm going to ask you to find a partner and take turns asking your partner these questions. Don't do it. That's just for show. It's not the real Sam. Okay, so we've talked to our partner. Did you learn anything interesting about your partner? What do they do to quench their thirst? Did anybody's partner say beer? No. What's what's the best way to quench thirst? You can answer. In the chat, tell me what's your favorite way to quench your thirst? Water. Oh, it's water. It's the best answer, I think. Very modern answer. I think 20 years ago, Gatorade Zero. Okay, that's a good one. I think 20 years ago, the answer might be different than water. I don't know. Coconut water, my favorite. Water with a splash of juice. Okay. Thank you, Renee. So imagine you're students and you talk to your partner and they elicited it and said, okay, cool, interesting. Um, Make sure that you kind of catch this meaning, spirit of generosity, heartwarming. Check. Everybody understands. And once again, we're in the pre stage before we actually start reading. Does anyone have any questions for me on the vocabulary there in the one-on questions? Is there anything I can explain? I assume we're okay. It's a really great question, Zoe. Do you allow students to look up the words on their phones? Probably I would. Before they talk to their partner, I might give them a couple minutes, but maybe not. What if Rashi says, what if students don't understand scorching? I might ask them to get help from a partner. I might ask them to get help, or I might explain. I might give an example. Great question, Luciana. What if they don't understand the vocabulary? Um, I would try and be patient with it because it's coming. And what level? I chose it for pretty advanced students. I chose it for you all, but someone says smartphone translation. Sure, I wouldn't be worried about that. And if I needed to jump in with an example or explanation, I would be ready and just do that. But I would personally, I wouldn't care about smartphones, but you might have your own answers and thoughts on it, and schools might have their own policies. Well, great contributions. Stay indoors to beat the heat. Exactly, Mr. Wynn. Oh, interesting question about their own language. I would not have any problem with that. I might try to encourage them to use English, but if that's sort of the trend that we have in the class, or what we decided as a group, I would not I would not consider it a big deal. Because mostly, and these questions are really great, thank you. Keep it up. Mostly I want them to be able to decode the text that's coming. So that's my ultimate goal, is these words are coming. You're going to want to know them eventually. And this is just a taste. So if somebody gets a little bit stuck, if they can't quite get scorching and their partner gives them a hint that it's something about hot, I'm happy with that. I don't need them to get it fully in this first part. Code switching, sure, they can go back and forth. And also, if I was really worried about something getting lost, I would give a definition or have another activity with matching. So match the word to the definition. So I can make it even clearer. With you all, I kind of thought, oh, I'll just raise these, I'll just bring up these interesting bits of language, and see what happens. So if there's no questions, and it's okay if there are, I'll move on here. We're in still the pre stage of our very wonderful demo on a reading lesson. So students, following words here, it's a little bit small on my screen. The following words here appear in the text that we're going to read. And this is a word cloud straight from 2009. And in this word cloud, the words that appear bigger appear more times in the text. So we can kind of see which word looks pretty big there. Water looks big. So we can assume that water is a big theme in in the text we're going to read. So I want you to take a moment, talk to your partner, don't talk to your partner, talk to your partner and make a prediction about what the text is about. I love word clouds too much. I didn't want to go too much behind the scenes here, but I showed my partner my slides and she said, "What about a word cloud? Why is there no word cloud there? Don't you love word clouds?" I said, "Yep, okay, go, yes, ma'am, go into it." So that's why it's there. And because I love it. Okay, so you've predicted our text with your partner. That's great. I wonder if anyone wants to share. Don't share. Okay. Uh, Carol says it's about the need to hydrate in the scorching heat in Vietnam. Amazing guess. Amazing guess. I don't know how anyone could guess at that. Let me give you another hint here on my screen. This is a picture. Actually, I took a similar picture. This is not my picture, but here's another picture from Vietnam. Health and safety. Yes, Mr. Long. How? Oh, okay. How to avoid a heat stroke. Okay. Interesting idea. So once again, this picture is from Vietnam. Uh, my translation would be something like, please, please take water. Water for the taking. Another translation, a more smooth translation might be free water. And we'll see a little bit more about this shortly. Okay, might be ice. So now we're gonna finally take a look at the text. You made your prediction. You made your prediction about what it's about. How to avoid heat stroke, health and safety, uh, need to hydrate, all very good answers. So what we'll do next, I'll give you a chance to check if your prediction is right. And I'm sharing it on my screen here. And also I'll share it on my screen and I'll share the link once again, just in case you missed it the first time. So your job right now, read the text and check if your prediction was correct. Double check if your prediction was correct. Climate change, interesting. I'm sharing my screen for a moment. I'm stopping sharing my screen and I'm going to just share the link one more time. I see many people are here, but I just want to make sure everybody's got it. And you can find the text, they're about in the middle of, of that page I just shared. During reading. Uh, I said I'd give you 2 minutes, but I'm going to rush here a little bit. Um, does anybody think they had the correct prediction? Some people are nodding. So if you believe you had the correct prediction, what was your prediction? Somebody said climate change related. Robert White says I got heartburn. Thinking very true. Marxist theme. Too true. So, effects of climate change? Okay, okay, Robert. Roshi says, what happens and what to do during heat waves? Okay. I had a slightly different idea about what it's about exactly, but I agree with all of these things we're hearing. Dirty water in Vietnam. I didn't think that, but okay. Interesting. So that was it once. I kind of rushed you to read really quickly to find just the media and check if your prediction was correct. What I'd like you to do next is to read one more time. To read again, excuse me. To read again. And this time I want you to choose I want you to choose the title that you think fits best for this article. So I'm putting it into the chat. Choose choose which title fits best. I'll give people another minute to put their answers in. Okay, thank you. This is so beautiful, in my opinion, because I would Zoe says, would you do this in pairs or individually? Probably individually and then pairs. I would kind of think of it as a think, pair, share sort of thing, and then open it up to the whole group. So if we had more time and if I wanted to send you to breakout rooms, I would do that. Or in class, in class, I would definitely check with your partner and maybe explain why you think that. Um, and again, thank you for the question, Zoe. Because of the vocabulary like thirst and kind-hearted. Mhm, mhm, Interesting, interesting. What I wanted to say was I think it's very interesting and beautiful that I thought this question would be everybody would agree. The answer I was looking for is A. That's the answer I was expecting. That's not to say if you chose B that you're wrong, including D. D. If you chose B, C, or D, I can't say that you're wrong. I would say maybe C is a little bit not exactly the topic, but uh, so the fact that we all teachers and high level English users uh, had some difference of opinion here, I think is really great. And if this were an English class, we could kind of negotiate and come back to why do you think that? What's your reason for that? And get a whole big discussion. I was going to say battle, but it's not. We could have a whole big discussion about that. So my answer here was A. Um, and again, in class, I could clarify spreading kindness is subjective. True. Carrie says shorter titles can also be effective. Yes. I suppose I should say that the long title A is the real title from the newspaper. So I can't say that anyone's wrong to have a different opinion, but that's like actually what the title was. Yes, Carol says rural areas and Saigon. True. Um, so we've read the text twice. Once we're kind of skimming just in general to get the gist. And then we read again here for a little bit more detail to find the title to get a little bit deeper understanding. And now I want you to read again. Um, I won't make you read long. I want you to read again, dive back into the text, uh, and determine if these statements here, I put in the chat, are true or false. So I'll stop talking for a minute to give you a chance to recheck, to reread and check your answers. Roshi says A, B, and C are true. D is false. A has almost the same answer. Anyone else want to share their answer? A is a little bit tricky, I think. Robert asked a very interesting question that I hope to get to in a moment. Karen says D is false. Karen's D is false. A, not sure if true. So my suggestion is that A is not true. A is false because yes, only true for some. Only those who can afford to go to a cafe or a mall or something like that. So that was a little bit tricky to kind of push you to read more carefully and really answer the question as it's there. Robert's question was, should we go beyond getting the correct answers and elicit student reactions, citing the text? I think so, sure. That's a really great point and a great question. So I kept things a little bit ambiguous on purpose to give you a chance to sort of see things in a different way. What I don't want to do is things like, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But I think here, when there's a little bit of nuance, like A is only trick for some. D is factually incorrect. There's no hint of that in the piece. But A, you have to dig a little bit deeper and think about it. So basically, I would say A is not quite true, B is true, C is true, and D exactly false. So if it's a real class, we could spend some time diving into why, writing our own sentences for each other, something like this. So that was your third time. That was your third time to read. First time for gist, second time for a little bit more detail, here for specific details. We have to go back and jump around. So thus ends a wonderful sample lesson. Did I miss anything? Did I forget anything? Leslie says develops critical literacy skills. Yeah, that's the idea exactly. So did I miss anything in my PDP sample? Please go ahead, Karen. You can talk or type as you wish, unless you're muted.
No, great example. That's all I'm saying. Great, great.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, appreciate it. Other people are quite correctly telling me what I missed. The post. We had pre, kind of warm up, activate schema, get thinking about things. Then we had some during, read, and no post. There was no post. How could that be? Lorraine says I would pre-teach with a listening or video for the context first. Great, sure. I saw another good idea. Robert says it might be easier to get vocab comprehension now, post. Yes, that's a really good point. Thank you. Yes. So I think once students have proven that they can get the main ideas and specific details, now we can really focus on language points, vocab or grammar or whatever. So this is a little surprise for many teachers that in the post we can really hone in on language, on vocab in this case. So that's a really astute point. Thank you. And I think oftentimes we try and do two things at once, do Lexis and comprehension at the same time, but here doing post would be really great. Carol says I'm confused, weren't the title and True, false, post activities? No, that was reading. I expected you to read. I wanted you to go back. I wanted you to go back in and read. So I consider that to be a during reading because you're supposed to read. You're supposed to use your reading skills to answer the question. So they were those activities, the reading activity. What's the post activity? We haven't done it yet. I skipped it. I forgot. So Robert says it's difficult to go. What's the post activity? Oh, Robert says it found it difficult to reread. Yes, it can be, but I think the idea that I want to highlight here is we want to get students to dive back into the text, to work with it, to develop a greater understanding and to show their comprehension of the text. So that's what I'm trying to do. No bunting. We have a Moneyball fan here. Okay, so I skipped the post, not by accident, I promise. So that's my question for you then. I mean, what would be a good post activity here? My slides are not keeping up with me. You must have deleted the slide. Dialogue. So a question for everybody, you can type in the chat or speak up if you'd like. What could we do as a post? Yes, Carrie says we have to keep in mind the activity will be slower, much slower. And go back to the text, check with your partner, elicit, right? Rereading a few times. Leslie says comparison between the countries the students are in and Vietnam. Great. Guide for tours brochure, love it. Other ideas for a post activity? I know it's kind of a tough question because we didn't talk about post activities in detail yet. Share personal experience, exactly, Mr. Wynn. Discussion about climate change, great. And what we're seeing here with these really nice answers is that they're going off in all sorts of different directions. Give a toast. Vocab and answering questions around the grounds related to the context. Put it in personal area. Yeah, personalize it. So these are really nice questions. Excuse me, these are really nice suggestions. Robert with a 1-minute paper. And Renee suggests honing in on vocab and have students use their own sentences, perhaps making a comparison to something similar they know about written or spoken. Lovely. And that's exactly what I want to highlight here is using the language that they have, maybe language that appears in the text, maybe not, language that they have to do something productive. So in this PDP framework, I'm spoiling the end, the big surprise. In this PDP framework, the objective is met in the D, in the final D. So students prove that they understand the text, they prove they can comprehend the text, they meet the objective in the final D stage. And then we move on to the post stage and we can do whatever we want. That's what I want to highlight. It's kind of flexible and focusing on responding to the text, focusing on language, focusing on something interesting. Discuss charity, share a drink at the bar, sharing pictures from a reading. Yeah, all great ideas, right? So I want to suggest that re-emphasize the words you underlined in the first line. Sure. And they're there in the text, right? So we can get students to work with those words that appear, grammar that appears that we didn't even think about yet, concepts, great ideas. I love it. I'll just show you what I was going to do with you. And this doesn't mean it's the best idea or the right idea or the only idea or anything at all, but this is what I plan to do with you as hosts. Post reading number 1. Short little discussion, nothing fancy. a short little discussion. How do Vietnamese people tend to handle the heat differently from Americans? That kind of corresponds with somebody's suggestion in the chat, I think. How is the country that you're in? Something like that. So that was my first idea. Just a simple question, kind of elicit some answers and see what people say. Rashi says focusing on language, compare heat, summer in their countries. Terry asks, would you underline the words and phrases in the actual full text from the beginning? Maybe. It depends, but yeah, I think it's a good idea. Sure. Especially if I wanted to show that, yeah, that stuff at the beginning, that was related. It wasn't just it was fun, but it wasn't just for fun, guys. So I would maybe do that, but maybe not. Lorraine suggests emphasizing the vocab from the beginning. Sure. And this is why I really like the question from the group here. What if they don't get the words? That's great. And then hopefully by seeing it a few times here, and maybe if we have to explain, and get a partner to explain, dictionary, whatever, ChatGPT, whoever. By now, maybe we're ready to work with it. So I think that's a really good point. So that was my post reading number one. Here's a short discussion. Reading two. What do you think of the principle? Those with excess give, those that need take. How do you see this principle in action in the article? How or do you see this in action in life? You're going to be accused of being a Marxist here, spreading Marxist propaganda in New York. So I like this question here. This is my question, right? But I like this question here to really personalize it. What do you think? What do you think about this? Do you have some examples? Have you seen this? Have you done this like this? And again, I think as people suggested, it helps us go back to the vocab at the beginning, generous spirit of generosity, this kind of thing. So here we're just answering questions about our own thinking, but also responding to the text. And I want to emphasize again, post reading could be any number of many things. People suggest role play. I think that's great. Could be any number of things. My idea, just because I like the picture so much, is write an interview with this anonymous benefactor, Mr. Lam. Find out why he does this. The interview should be at least 10 questions and answers. Again, just playing around with it. Who is Mr. Lam? Curious. Filling up the tea in the jug. Prepare 2-minute summary. So I thought, write an interview or even perform an interview with your classmate. One of you is Mr. Lam. And I really like this image. Renee says students might write and speak a conversation about a point in this article using vocab and perform for the class. Love it. Sure. So as we can see, there's no shortage of ideas how to exploit the text. Yeah, dialogue doesn't have to be with Mr. Lam. I just liked the picture and thought it was fun. As we can see, there's no shortage of exploiting an interesting enough article and getting students to focus on the language. Last question I have on the screen. This one? Pass. I assume that's what you mean, Renee. Let me know if I got it wrong. So that was my idea for post listening activities, and you all shared very good ones that I like as well. So what I want to suggest is there's a lot of great options, and if you choose one, don't feel bad about not choosing another. So that's the end of my sample lesson. I have a little bit more to say, and then I want to leave some time for questions. Oh, thank you, man. How long do you think it took me to prepare the demo? not the whole presentation, which was a long time actually, but how long do you think it took me to prepare the demo? Be honest. 2 hours, 30 minutes. Someone says high intermediate. Yeah, I thought pretty advanced, to be honest. How long would the lesson take? I don't know. Could take a real long time. My question was, how long do you think it took me to prepare it? Now I brag about preparing. I didn't use AI. Maybe I used AI for one thing, like what are tricky words? So now I'm in the weird position of asking that question and I have to answer it. The correct answer is it took me 20 minutes to prepare the demo. Took me 20 minutes and 25 years. It also took me days to choose the right article. I had to go back and forth and read a bunch of articles. Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. We could have been having a discussion about Gen Z slang and whatever else. But once I finally chose the article, it only took me 20 minutes to prepare because I had this framework in mind. I knew what I wanted to do. As I said, my partner suggested a word cloud. Everything sort of fell into place. But when you have the framework ready and you know what you want to do and you have your aims clear, it's very, very fast to prepare. So that's, again, weird bragging on my part. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much. It was great to see you. I appreciate it. Leslie says text choice is the toughest part. I think so too. I suppose, Rashi says, if students have access to their phones, might they get ChatGPT answer? I suppose so. I suppose anything can happen. I don't know what that means for their choices though, right? Because then next I'm gonna ask them to talk and do other things and talk to their partner. So it's a little bit like, oh, good for you. You got a meaningless question correct. I don't know. But it's certainly something to think about. Yes, I need to do better saving my files. I love this article. Um, Actually, I took a picture of this when I first came to Vietnam because I knew the word free and I thought it was so beautiful. And then I didn't really know if I got it right. And then I learned about it. And now I see an article. So that's how I had to choose. So I promised time for Q&A, but we also had questions throughout. So I'd like to say a little bit more and then give you 5 minutes for Q&A if that works. If you have a question that's burning, just put it into the chat and I'll do my best to answer it. Thank you, Rashi. Rashi says, wonderful lesson. I want to highlight that it was actually not so wonderful. It was just sort of paint by numbers. I appreciate the feedback and your participation and everything, sincerely, but I want to suggest that it's just a matter of having these little steps and trying to put them together. As I said, the framework. Yes, the framework is great. Yes, yes, yes. 25 years and 25 minutes. Other thing I want to say is that, yeah, there's a lot of room for, thank you, Renee says, jumping off point. There's a lot of room to go in different directions here. I have the language points. Yeah, we need to know these. Okay, I want to see the comprehension, and then we'll do stuff with these ideas. So what I want to do next is just very quickly talk about activities for different stages and a possible sequence. So here I say possible PDP sequence. This is kind of what we saw. And if you want to keep this in mind, I think it's worth doing. And this is not set in stone. You know, you don't have to have 4 pre-activities and 4 during activities. But, you know, as a rule of thumb, it's kind of nice to have 3 visits back to the text. It's kind of nice to go from general to specific. It's kind of nice to prove that students understand the text in the final during stage. It's great to have a productive post stage. I'm jumping around a lot because you guys are really great asking questions and helping me out. So my question for you all is, if you're rushing and you're running out of time and you have to skip one part, which part would you skip? You absolutely have to skip. I know my answer, which doesn't mean it's the right answer. Number 7, okay, the final read, the final during, or the second to last during. That's a great choice, Roshi. I have a different answer, but I like that. Tough question. Vocab review. Okay. Could you combine 1 and 2? Yeah, sure, for sure. So my answer to which one I would skip is a little different. Mine is 9, the post, because students prove that they understand the text, and we'll do productive stuff next week. So of course it's nice to get students talking, have a debate, have a role play, save the post for next week or for homework. Exactly. So with my example there from the gentleman pouring the tea, I would maybe make that for homework, create an interview with him. So I think it's a little different from a PPP lesson where you never want to skip the final P. If you have to skip the P here, just go ahead, come back to it later. Keep it in mind, keep it in your back pocket. Add it as a review for next time. Cornell notes, I suppose, would be one particular purpose for reading. So maybe it's a little bit different because it's not like so lockstep where everybody reads and answers for listening. I think Cornell notes could be any kind of during. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. And it's kind of opposed to when you plan your questions to think about. But my answer is one could use it as a during. So I'll just go very, very quickly and then I'll stop talking. I promise. So pre-activities, I think we've seen this, and I got the sense that you guys know what we want to do with it. So aims for pre-activities: generate interest, activate background knowledge, pre-teach vocab. Option. You don't have to. Somebody said they'd skip it. I respect it. Have students make predictions, provide reasons for listening. For me, if I'm doing PDP, and this is sort of my own way, I love to have students make a prediction, and then the first reading is check the prediction. It's like every time, if I had to plan a reading lesson, that's what I would do, or a listening lesson. That's what I do every time. Here's a picture, make prediction, listen and check. Is your prediction correct? I don't know. Talk to your partner and find out. Check each other, test each other. So that's like my usual move, is to give some vocab, and say, hey, we're gonna listen to a song that has all these words in it. What do you think it's about? Oh, heartache. Okay, check. It doesn't have to be hard. Make it easy, general purpose. Really smooth transition, I think, from that free to during one. I can't say it always works, but that's my sort of goal. What do I mean by providing reasons? Well, first of all, don't just say read this, listen to this. Give them a task, give them a purpose, give them a focus in their reading and listening. Also, maybe try and make it as interesting as possible. I don't want to brag, but I don't think when you woke up today you expected to be interested in free water in Vietnam. But I think you were a little bit interested as we were doing this stuff. So generate interest, provide a reason for what they're going to do. Thank you for the question, Zoe. So that's pre-activity aims. I'm sorry, Roshi, I don't follow. Oh, what do I mean by provide reasons for listening?
Oh, I'm sorry, I unmuted Zoe's question. I was reiterating. Do you see her
Okay,
question?
did I answer?
Nope.
No,
Yes?
nobody
Oh,
says
so,
yes.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't, I missed it. Sorry.
No problem, no problem.
What was
I
the
would say
answer?
simply provide a task to complete.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. I guess I should be finishing up here. I will finish up, yeah. But if people have questions, I'll stick around and answer them. I don't want to keep you in class. Hot,
Thank you,
muggy
Mike. That was
Saturday.
excellent. That was really very, very clear and very useful, hands-on. I loved it. I hope everybody.
Let me share the slides
like it.
before I forget.
Okay. Well, I was going to say it is being recorded, which I'll now, I'll stop in a moment. But so you can watch the recordings. We've got a full playlist. I emailed it to you. I recommend to all of you to go through the webinars and have a look. But I mean, you'll be able to. Plus, now we've opened it in Google Docs. You've got the text as well that we can use. But it's been wonderful. So lots of people have said thank you, Karen, Laurie, everybody, and it's just great to see so many people, as I said, on a Saturday. So you do get extra points in the teaching God world to say thank you. I can see Claudia Carco is here, so I don't know if she wants to just say a few words before we sign off.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Mike. Thank you for this wonderful presentation and the audience for such amazing questions. I kept going to the chat and wanting to write a question, and then somebody would beat me to it. So.
Right.
Thank you so much. This is great.
I kept wanting to say something and somebody said it.
Okay, well, that's it. That's it for this morning. As I said, thank you, Mike. Now you can go to bed because I know it's really late for you. And I'm just impressed by everybody from everywhere, from Turkey, Abu Dhabi to goodness knows where. And I still can't believe that it is however hot it was. So it was really appropriate that we talked about this. So thank you for joining us. And we, of course, will have another because the ELI webinars, as I was saying to Mike, have become really very, very popular and watched by many. So take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Robert. Nice to see you.
I don't know, man.
How are you feeling? Oh, let me stop the recording.